The Delimitation Commission on Jammu and Kashmir submitted its final report, which has been accessed by NewsX. And according to this report, the Commission has recommended increasing the number of assembly seats for Kashmir. It has been suggested to increase the seats from 46 to 47, while the Jammu region will have 43 seats instead of 37. Now, Jammu and Kashmir will have 90 assembly seats. Though what's significant and noteworthy is that the Commission says that additional seats will be allocated for those displaced from POK. It does not specify what that number could be or would be. We at NewsX have been running a long campaign to fill the seats in POK. Remember, there are over 6 lakh POK refugees and 24 setas in seats in the assemblies. And the question is, can we fill those seats? Let's discuss this with our guest. Joining me on the platform at this point in time is Lieutenant General Raj Katyan, ex-Deputy Chief of Army and Defence expert. Also joining us on the show is Colonel J.S. Sodhi, Foreign Affairs expert. Rajiv Chunni, Chairman of the SOS International Organization for POK Displaced People, is also here with us on the show. And last but by no means the least, Mr. Amjad Ayub Mirza, Pakistan and POK human rights activist, joining us on this very important conversation. Mr. Mirza, if I can start with you. Well, the the delimitation exercise has been achieved, and at the same time, a number of seats have been increased in Jammu. One has also been increased in Kashmir. But the point here is to accommodate those people who have been displaced from POK. What do you think their representation means, and what more can be done for them?
Thank you very much. I think it is very important that the refugees who are living outside of POJK, especially in Jammu and Kashmir, should be given their due representation in the Legislative Assembly that will be formed after the elections. But at the same time, I'm slightly confused as how are these seats going to be filled in these 24 seats for POJK, because the refugees who are living in Jammu and Kashmir in India, how will they be able to represent the local constituencies in Mirpur, Muzaffarabad, Koti and Bhimber? Therefore, I am still working around this, that how are, for instance, we are from POJK, right? So if we have a representation from the POJK, from Mirpur, Bhimber and other parts of POJK, then how is that going to set in with the refugees who are already living in the Union Territory? Therefore, I think that Mr. Chunni can shed light on this and let us know what he thinks about this, because I thought that there should have been special seats for refugees living in India, Kashmiri refugees in India. But having said that, I think that this is a big step forward towards rehabilitation of not only the assembly and democratic process, but also of the statehood of Jammu and Kashmir. Yeah.
राजीव चुन्नी जी, अगर आप मेरी आवाज़ सुन पा रहे हैं? चुन्नी जी, अगर आप मेरी आवाज़ सुन पा रहे हैं? Okay, we'll come back to him momentarily. चुन्नी जी, अगर आप मेरी आवाज़ सुन पा रहे हैं?
जी सुन पा रहे हैं।
चुन्नी जी, हमसे बातचीत करने के लिए धन्यवाद। द डीलिमिटेशन की जो प्रक्रिया थी वो समाप्त हो गई है। लोगों को रिप्रेजेंटेशन देना और उनकी सुनवाई एक बहुत ही बड़ा एक जज्बा होता है, एक तत्व होता है लोकतंत्र में। जिस हिसाब से डीलिमिटेशन हुई है, क्या आप उससे खुश हैं? पर कमीशन ने ये भी कहा है कि अगर जो लोग खुश नहीं हैं और कहीं कमी पेशी रह भी जाती है, उसके लिए सीट्स बढ़ाई जाएंगी, और वो खासकर इशारा उनका पीओके की तरफ था। आप क्या कहेंगे इस पर?
देखें, डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन से मैं मिला हूं। उनका ये कहना था कि सरकार ने एक संविधान हमें दिया है, एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हमें दिया है, और हमें विद इन दी फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन काम करना है, हम उसके बाहर नहीं जा सकते। और सरकार ने ये कहा था कि जो जम्मू कश्मीर का रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बाद नया असेंबली बना है, उसमें 90 सीटें होंगी विधानसभा में और 2 सीटें महिलाओं के लिए आरक्षित होंगी, कुल 92 सीटें होंगी 92, लेकिन पीओजेके की जो 24 सीटें थी जो संविधान में तब से हैं जब जम्मू कश्मीर का संविधान बना महाराजा हरि सिंह जी के जाने के बाद, और ये तब बना संविधान तब भाजपा का जन्म भी नहीं हुआ था। मैं इसलिए उनका नाम ले रहा हूं कि इनके पहले से जो प्रोविजन था उस प्रोविजन को एक्सटेंड करना था हम तक, हमें पॉलिटिकल एम्पावरमेंट मिलती, लेकिन हम गलती तब कर गए जब हमने 5 अगस्त 2019 को रीसेटलमेंट एक्ट लाया तो हमने एसटीज के लिए 9 सीटें यहां रखी, हमने शेड्यूल कास्ट के लिए 7 सीटें रखी, लेकिन पीओजेके के लिए हमने सीटें नहीं रखी। अब जब आप बात करते हैं डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन की तो उसके पास बड़ा लिमिटेड स्कोप है, और मैंने इनको ये एक सलाह दी थी कि इस पर चुनाव भी कराए जा सकते हैं। तो उन्होंने पूछा कैसे कराए जा सकते हैं, तो मैंने कहा देखिए मीरपुर के विस्थापित यहाँ हैं, मुजफ्फराबाद के विस्थापित यहाँ हैं, पुंछ के विस्थापित यहाँ हैं, उन इलाकों के जो पाकिस्तान के कब्जे में। तो आप एक काम करिए, जिस तरीके से कश्मीरी पंडित आज दिल्ली में बैठकर, मुंबई में बैठकर, कलकत्ता में बैठकर अपने रिस्पेक्टिव असेंबली सेगमेंट के लिए वोट डालता है और उसको गिना जाता है हब्बा कदल और अमीरा कदल में, मेरा वोट जम्मू में बैठकर, दिल्ली में बैठकर, यूपी में बैठकर मीरपुर के लिए क्यों नहीं गिना जा सकता? मेरा वोट मुजफ्फराबाद के लिए क्यों नहीं गिना जा सकता? मेरा वोट पुंछ के इलाकों के लिए क्यों नहीं गिना जा सकता जो पाकिस्तान के आज कब्जे में है, नाजायज कब्जे में? और हमने ये भी कहा था, हमने कहा था आप हमें 24 सीटें मत दीजिए क्योंकि हम 1/3 लोग हिंदू सिख वहां से विस्थापित हैं, आप हमें 8 सीटें दे दीजिए और 16 सीटें उनके लिए रखिए जो इलाका जब पार है और जब वो हमारे साथ जुड़ेगा तो हम उनको भी 16 सीटें देकर नुमाइंदगी दे देंगे। और जब ये बात चली कि टेरिटोरियल कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज हमारे पास नहीं है तो इन लोगों का चुनाव कैसे होगा, मैंने कहा इसका दूसरा फार्मूला ये है कि इन लोगों को नॉमिनेशन दे दीजिए, इनकी नॉमिनेशन हो जाए लेकिन इनको पूरे राइट्स मिले जो एक चुने हुए एमएलए को मिलते हैं, यानी असेंबली के अंदर कोई भी बिल लाया जाए, कोई भी चर्चा हो, उस पर इन्हें वोटिंग राइट होना चाहिए ताकि ये पूरी ताकत के साथ, पूरे दांतों के साथ अपने वहां सदन में बैठें और अपने इलाके की भी बात करें, अपने समुदाय की भी बात करें। और मैं ये जरूर कहूंगा, जिसको हम अपना अभिन्न अंग मानते हैं पाक अधिकृत जम्मू कश्मीर को, जब तक हम उसको पॉलिटिकल एम्पावरमेंट नहीं देंगे वहां से आए हुए विस्थापितों को, हमारी सीरियसनेस कहीं नजर नहीं आएगी। मैं समझता हूं कि मुझे नहीं पता अभी तक कि डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन ने क्या रिपोर्ट पेश की है, लेकिन मुझे इस बात का मालूम है, उन्होंने मुझे पहले इशारा दे दिया था कि हम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से बाहर नहीं जाएंगे। लेकिन अगर वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से बाहर नहीं गए तो इसका मतलब है कि मेरे लिए कोई ज्यादा उम्मीद अभी नहीं है। मैं आपका धन्यवादी हूं, खासतौर पर न्यूज एक्स चैनल का, जिन्होंने लगातार 4-5 वर्षों से इस पर एक कैंपेन चला रखी है कि ये होना चाहिए, यहाँ पर जो लोग बैठे हैं उनको नुमाइंदगी मिलनी चाहिए। और मैं आपका धन्यवादी हूं, आज जितनी भी बातें चल रही हैं, जो भी चर्चाएं हो रही हैं, उसके लिए जो श्रेय है वो केवल और केवल आपके चैनल को जाता है। धन्यवाद, जय हिंद।
चुन्नी जी, हमारी सराहना करने के लिए, अप्रिशिएट करने के लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जनरल कादियान, इफ यू कैन हियर मी, taking a leaf out of what Mr. Chunni said, that the delimitation exercise has to be done within the constitution, but at the same time there are anomalies, people who belong to the areas which have been captured by Pakistan. What's going to happen of their representation?
First of all, in a true democracy, all sections of society must be represented in the assembly. So far, the J&K assembly was dominated by the Srinagar division, which is just about 50.7% of the total population, but they had 46 seats versus 37 to the others. So there is a need for rebalancing. Of course, the Delimitation Commission comprises people who are expert in this, but people who are living in the states, like the refugees that came in 1947, have been living for 75 years, the Kashmiri Pandits who were dislodged in 90 from the valley and have come to Jammu, nearly 1.5 lakhs. So they must find representation, and they should find representation in a manner that the constitution permits. So the commission has recommended to give them seats through nomination, which I am sure is permitted constitutionally. But elections should be held as early as possible. this Delimitation Commission report needs to be finalized as quickly as possible so that the government that rules in J&K is representative of all sections of the society, including tribals. I mean, there are Gujars, roughly 11% of the J&K population. Some Bakarwals who may be lesser, 2 to 3%. But they also need to find representation either through reservation or through nomination, whatever the constitution permits. Obviously, this will be resisted by the valley-based parties like the National Conference, like the PDP, who have been ruling the state so far, although they were not entirely in majority, nor were they representative of the entire population. So I think this report, without going into the intricacies of the figures and facts, that who should be given 6 more to the Jammu region, 1 more to the Valley region, etc., that the experts have examined. But it needs to be finalized. Elections need to be held so that the government in J&K is representative of the people. At the moment, is being ruled by the center, which cannot be a lasting solution.
All right. Colonel Sodhi, if you're there with us. Colonel Sodhi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Colonel Sodhi, the government has done a lot when it comes to for the POK displaced population in the country. But at the same time, what they really want at this point is to be associated with the places they have been displaced from. It's a tough battle, it's an uphill task, but at the same time, a message has to be given to Pakistan. We are flashing some of the ideas, some things that can be done in order to ensure that their representation is bona fide to the maximum hilt. And that's exactly what Mr. Chunni also said, that's exactly what Mr. Mirza also said, because they are the voices of POK. In your opinion, how is this, inassailable task possible in the near future, especially after the Delimitation Commission, put out its findings and submitted a report and also said that Jammu and Kashmir will be represented in a way like never before. But what about the people from POK? They still want representation. There doesn't seem to be much for them in this.
Jai Hind, Vineet, it's an honor to be on NewsX once again. Before I answer your question, I would like to compliment the NewsX team and the Delimitation Commission. NewsX, because for last 4-5 years, you have highlighted this issue repeatedly, and it has borne fruit today. And to the Delimitation Commission also, was submitted this report in just a span of 2 years and 2 months. If we remember, the last Delimitation Commission in J&K took 7 long years to submit its report. And this Delimitation Commission, headed by retired Justice Ranjana Desai, has done a phenomenal job of doing the work in just 2 years and 2 months, that too in the COVID times. So heartiest compliments to NewsX as well as the Delimitation Commission. Now coming to your question. Well, your question is very pertinent. The submitting of the Delimitation Commission report today is very historic for the state of Jammu and Kashmir and for India overall. There are, for the Jammu and Kashmir and India, these are 3 very historic decisions. First was the Balakot airstrikes. The second was the revocation of Article 370, and the third historic, decision for J&K is today when the Delimitation Commission has submitted its report. Having said that, I totally agree with Mr. Mirza and Mr. Chunni, who are the people actually on ground. Yes, it is a little difficult task, but it is not an impossible task. The path has been shown by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, by the Delimitation Commission today. These are mere nitty-gritties which I'm sure will be worked out in the times to come. And nothing better could have been, given to the state of Jammu and Kashmir just as the holy festival of Eid has finished. This is a wonderful gift to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And I'm sure that the elections will be held very shortly. And what Jammu and Kashmir has been yearning for development for last 75 years, this is exactly which will pave way, and it will elevate the people's, the common people's life, as well as the state which will become a major tourism hub and not suffer the way it has suffered for the last 3-4 decades.
All right, Mr. Mirza, there's been a plan of action in the minds of people of the country for representing people who have been displaced from POK. What has been your idea specifically when it comes to this representation which has eluded people like yourself and Mr. Chunni?
Well, you see, first of all, we have to understand that we are a people who are dispersed and we are dispersed all over the world, like Mr. Chuni and his organization. They know better that so many people who are now living away from their homeland, which was in POJK, are dispersed people, forcefully had to leave their homeland. So it will take time before everything settles down and POJK is integrated into the union body of the Republic of India. But at the moment, I think the best thing is that from the diaspora and take the advice of Mr. Chuni from Jammu Kashmir and the refugees who can represent POJK, that is a very valid way to solve this issue of filling up the 24 or whatever seats there are. But there are also what they call it, displaced people living in Europe, living in America, living in Middle East, and they could also, join in and fill in these seats. And it is very important that we look at the elections that we are talking about that might happen pretty soon. I think that within the next 6 months to 8 months or maximum a year, there will be elections and the statehood will be reinstated. I think it is very important for people who now in this day and age are from POJK and have roots in POJK should be given representation in the assembly so that that can reflect in back on POJK and they can have their voices heard inside the POJK in a very effective way. Thank you.
All right. चुन्नी जी, अगर आप मेरी आवाज़ सुन पा रहे हैं, क्या अपेक्षाएं हैं सरकार से? अब डीलिमिटेशन कमीशन ने अपनी रिपोर्ट दे दी है कि किस तरीके से ये बंटवारा होगा। आपकी क्या अपेक्षाएं हैं? क्या करना बाकी है? प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी भी डीलिमिटेशन एक्सरसाइज के बाद जो स्टेट में इलेक्शंस होंगे और स्टेटहुड मिलेगा जम्मू और कश्मीर को, वो एक प्रगतिशील आधार होगा भविष्य के लिए जम्मू और कश्मीर के लिए। इस बीच में आप अपने जैसे समर्थकों के बारे में क्या कहना चाहेंगे? क्या प्लान आप सामने रखना चाहेंगे?
देखें, निश्चित तौर पर प्रगति हुई है। अब डिलिमिटेशन कमीशन क्या रिपोर्ट देता है ये अभी साफ नहीं है, क्योंकि ऐसा लगा है कि ये होने वाला है, कुछ सीटें दी जाएंगी। तो मैं ये जरूर कहूँगा कि शुरुआत हुई है। ये ठीक है कि हमारी सेटिस्फेक्शन तक नहीं हुई है, लेकिन उसके लिए बात की जा सकती है। ये कोई ऐसा मामला नहीं है कि जो हो गया दोबारा नहीं होगा। उसके लिए हम प्रयास करेंगे। निश्चित तौर पर हमें आपका भी समर्थन मिलेगा, मिलता रहा है, और आप भी हमारा समर्थन करेंगे। लेकिन मैं एक बात जरूर कहना चाहूंगा, जब आप नॉमिनेशन की बात करते हैं, ये हम सरकार से भी उठाएंगे, तो कम से कम ये प्रोविजन होना चाहिए कि नॉमिनेशन जो है, चूंकि एक डिस्प्यूटेड मामला है और टेरिटरी पाकिस्तान के कब्जे में है, तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि इसकी नॉमिनेशन हमारे देश के राष्ट्रपति, प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया के पास हो, ना कि गवर्नर के पास हो। इसलिए मैं ये बात कह रहा हूं क्योंकि जब चुनी हुई सरकार रहती है, उसके पास ये मैंडेट होता है कि वो किसको नॉमिनेट करे। और ज्यादातर केसेस में यहाँ पर हमारे लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल हुआ करती थी, जो यहाँ रीऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बाद खत्म कर दी गई। वहां 8 लोग नॉमिनेट जो किए जाते थे, वो जिन जगहों से आने चाहिए, जैसे टीचर्स होने चाहिए, कोऑपरेटिव मूवमेंट से लोग होने चाहिए, साइंटिस्ट होने चाहिए, एग्रीकल्चर से लोग होने चाहिए, लेकिन वो लोग नहीं लाए जाते थे। उन लोगों को लाया जाता था जो चुनाव हार जाते थे और पार्टी उनको अकोमोडेट करने के लिए उसके नाम पर उन सीटों को भरती थी। तो इस तरह का खेल नहीं होना चाहिए। अगर चाहे थोड़ी सीटें भी दी गई हैं, तो ईमानदारी के साथ उन लोगों को जाएं जो वाकई में उस इलाके की नुमाइंदगी करते हैं या उस इलाके की बात करेंगे। तो हमारा ये कंसर्न है जो हम सरकार के साथ भी उठाएंगे और आपके इस चैनल के माध्यम से सरकार तक भी हम पहुंचाना चाहते हैं कि इन चीजों का भी ध्यान रखा जाए। बाकी अगर इसमें कोई दुश्वारियां रह गई हैं, मैं कहता हूं कि अच्छी बात है, शुरुआत हुई है, इसका मैं दोबारा कहूंगा कि श्रेय आपको जाता है। और आगे भी आपके साथ मिलकर जो कमियां होंगी, जो चीजें रह जाएंगी, जैसे मेरे साथी ने कहा, मिर्जा साहब ने, कि जो लोग यूनाइटेड किंगडम में चले गए, हैं वो भी पीओजेके के, उनका क्या करिएगा? मैं इनसे कहना चाहता हूं कि पहले जो लोग हिंदुस्तान में बैठे हैं इनका फैसला हो लेने दीजिए। हम ऐसे नहीं है कि हम आपका हाथ छोड़ देंगे। हमें मालूम है कि आप भी हमारा एक हिस्सा हो, हमारा अंग हो। इसीलिए भारत की पार्लियामेंट में ये रेजोल्यूशन पास हुआ था कि वो इलाका हमारा अभिन्न अंग है और हम इसको खाली कराएंगे। अगर इलाका हमारा अभिन्न अंग है तो मिर्जा साहब भी हमारे अभिन्न अंग है, तो निश्चित तौर पर हमारे साथ साथ आप भी चलेंगे। तो मैं कहता हूं कि शुरुआत हो लेने दीजिए, हमें इंसाफ मिलने दीजिए, हमारी बात होने दीजिए। निश्चित तौर पर आपकी भी बात होगी, हम करेंगे और हम सब मिलकर करेंगे। धन्यवाद।
Okay, we've almost run out of time. I'm going to take concluding thoughts from General Kadian and Colonel Sodi. General Kadian, starting with you. Sir, please unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Sorry, the question is for me?
Yes, sir. Concluding thoughts from you, sir. We've run out of time. Concluding thoughts, and then we'll wrap up.
No, the question is, I've heard they are the experts on the constitution and the processes. The problem is going to be about the people living in POK. We have reserved 24 seats which the constitution allows. But if you have to nominate in their place somebody else, the people should be the ones who can take part in the development process and can benefit from the development. POK is part of India. We have a resolution of 1994 and hopefully it will come to India sooner than later. But till that happens, I do not know whether filling those seats will really be representative. Otherwise, nomination, I agree with Rajiv, what he has said, that there should be the genuine people belonging to that area or that community or those tribes, rather than politically filling those seats by other favorites. I have nothing more to add on this. It is a dynamic process. The delimitation, whatever shortcomings are there, can be rectified even after 5 years in the next election. So it keeps taking place round the clock in the whole country. Delimitation keeps taking place. So this is not the final word, but we should do it quickly and hold the election.
Colonel Sodi, concluding thoughts from you, and then we wrap up.
Yeah. Vineet, since a very historic step has been taken today in the interest of Jammu and Kashmir, I feel that few of these 24 seats should be given to the migrants from POJK who are staying in Jammu and Kashmir and the other parts of India, so that they can take part in the democratic process once it starts, and their voice is heard. And eventually, as the process is fine-tuned, we can, think of, giving these seats to more members. But to begin with, definitely few seats out of 24 should be given to the displaced refugees of POJK, so that till now their voices have been unheard in the democratic setup in assembly, which now should, make a new beginning, and their voices should be heard, which will help pave way for better development and for the issues to be resolved at the level of a state assembly.
Absolutely. The level of the state assembly is where the issues need to be produced and put forth for these people and their sufferings to be in fact taken care of.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.